Hello everyone, welcome back, and we're here with the Plague of Shadows any percent tutorial series once again.
So after visiting the village, we're going to the second stage of the game, the Pridemoor Keep. This stage is also still rather easy compared to some of the later stages. At the beginning here you have to beat this lava cycle. It's not really tight though. In this upcoming room here, the rat damage boost won't always make you land on that dirt block up here. So if you land below it, just jump onto that dirt block. Also here sometimes the rat can randomly mess you up in that tight corridor at the bottom there. In general, Pridemoor has a lot of tight corridors, like these upcoming rooms here. The one thing to try to do here is not bonk at all. If you do bonk, you will lose your burst momentum, which will lose you about a second or so. So it's not a big deal if you do, but just try to do optimal movement in there. Upcoming after this Sphinx kind of mini boss, or whatever this is supposed to be, there's this big red room here. So this might be a bit intimidating at first. If you have trouble with this, just take a few more damage boosts to get through there. There's also some health at the end there if you need it. Now down here, we will just use this damage boost here to get through this lava. This is way easier than it looks. And now upcoming is the King Knight boss fight. He can be a bit finicky at first. We will go over him in detail later. Basically, you want to go into the left corner and then just do 6 bombs with double jump cancel. And now once he does his big jump there, it's kind of random, or not random but inconsistent. He won't always land at the same spot there, so you might not be able to replicate this boss fight perfectly every time, just because you can't consistently get him to jump at the spot you want him to jump every time.
You also might notice that Plague Knight doesn't jump when he collects an essence off of one of the knights. So if you want to split on gold here, there's actually a good audio cue and I'll cover that one later. So back at the first room of Pridemoor Keep, we're trying to beat the lava pot cycle that's at the end of this room. And you'll notice that instead of bursting immediately, he jumps first, and this is because, again, with especially longer rooms, you want to manage your jump burst so that you minimize the amount of time that you have to spend waiting for any reason. So another jump before you burst and then jump, and this will bring you to the dirt block that's preventing you from getting to the rest of the room. As you chuck bombs, they still carry a little bit of your momentum, so use it to try and get as close to this wall as possible. Again, you're trying to move in such a way that you beat this lava pot cycle. And if for any reason you feel like you're not going to be able to make it to a screen transition, then you can always, as you are touching it, if you are short for whatever reason, you can chuck a bomb so that you touch the screen transition as you're throwing a bomb, and then you can charge a burst after you've crossed the screen transition. This room is not particularly difficult, just make sure you grab as high up on the ladder as you can. And in this next room, as OddBod said, sometimes when you... It's based on, like, how long you have come out of your double jump, but sometimes you get a damage boost that bounces you up, and other times you get a damage boost that just drops you straight down. So you want to try and land on top of this dirt block, and then if you burst and jump properly, you should be able to grab onto this ladder. Burst to finish climbing, and in this room you're going to use a little bit of your burst invincibility. Again, once you burst, you have just a couple of frames where you're invincible from enemy attacks, so you can get right up on top of these two guys. The rat shouldn't be too much of a hindrance for you, so long as you're close enough that you are bursting on top of him. So the burst off the ladder, you want to flap towards the red mage, burst again when you're basically on top of the red mage's face, jump to the ladder, and your burst should be ready for one more burst to grab the ladder up on the next screen. As OddBod said before, one of the hardest parts of Pridemoor is maximizing your hang time in these small corridors. The more time you spend going at burst velocity, the better, so you want to try and, again, prevent yourself from jumping too early after the burst so that you get as much time in the air as possible. And once again, using your burst to prevent the Lancer from actually hitting you. Now, in this room, you want to try and keep your burst as low as possible so that you don't get hit by the chandeliers, because even touching them at all will cause you to get damaged, which could potentially knock you into a pit. Now, if you look to the left, you can see a Shovel Knight silhouette in the wall. If you choose to go over there, you can actually pick up Big Bomb, which is one of Plague Knight's weapons. It's a little expensive, but it is a very useful weapon, so if you wanted to consider using it in your any percent attempts, then you would actually be going to the Lich Yard first. Just keep that in mind. This dinner plate is random. It could be food, but it could also be a bomb, so just keep in mind if you're trying to heal there that it may not always be there for you. Now in this Griffin's room, you can either burst jump and clear him completely, or you can damage boost. It's up to you, however you feel more comfortable with taking that room. And that kind of leads into the movement for this rat room. If you're not comfortable with managing this way of doing the rat room, there is another way that I'm more used to doing for a 100% route. So as I approach this room, this was footage taken from one of my hundo attempts. What I like to do to set this up is I actually prefer to jump and then burst in this rat's face, which takes care of the first pair. And then as I approach the set of dirt blocks, I actually do a bomb toss to the left, which gets me over the rest of the rats, allows me to fall safely down to the floor and exit the room at my leisure. Now in this room, very simply, just make your way over to the chandelier, drop down, damage boost off the Lancer, and then walk out. Just burst whenever you can, and again, movement for this room, not too difficult, just make your way to the left, make sure you're falling as soon as possible. Now, as we're approaching the long book room, you want to try and make it so that you move like so, and that's because you want to try and keep the room in the same pot cycles. You're going to start off by doing a burst, jump, burst over to the books after the first set of lava pots, and you're trying to do a damage boost to land on top of the books. Now, if you try and jump at all, this will screw up your positioning, so you want to make sure that you basically only barely regain control of Plague Knight. So there's no jumping, it's just burst, jump, burst, and then burst, jump, and you want to basically on this burst, jump, hold left. And if you position this correctly, then as you hold left, you shouldn't actually move left. You should just barely be able to turn around at the last moment so that you damage boost to the right. Otherwise, you'll regain control of Plague Knight if you're too high up, and then instead of being able to damage boost to the right, you'll just miss the rat and fall to your death. And the iframes make it very easy to exit the room, and I really recommend that you practice this room a couple of times, just so that it doesn't end your runs. It's a pretty simple room once you get the hang of it. So your long Pridemoor book room at full speed. Burst, jump, burst. On the book, burst, jump, turn left, damage boost, jump, burst, burst. Now as you're climbing this ladder, you want to burst before you finish climbing it and then jump into the screen transition. This just gives you a little bit more of that burst velocity into this next room, which will help you in getting over the griffin. You won't be trapped under the low ceiling, so you shouldn't have any problems having another burst ready, jumping, and then burst, jump, burst over it. So we're coming up on King Knight, and one of the important techniques that we briefly went over in the village was canceling your bomb toss animation with a jump cancel so you can throw more bombs. At the start of the fight, have your burst ready, but don't immediately damage him. You're trying to push King Knight out of the corner to trick him into jumping back into the corner. So once King Knight has cleared the first window, you can jump, let him kind of get a little bit closer to you, and then burst, which will push him back a little bit. Chuck 3 bombs, and then you want to jump cancel and chuck 3 more bombs. And if you did this correctly, if you let King Knight get a little bit closer to you, as you chuck that 3rd bomb, you should have pushed him out just barely enough so that he is to your right, which means he'll try to jump toward you to the left a couple more times. Including that first burst, you should have gotten 7 hits on him by now. From here you want to start charging a burst and get ready for him to start moving to the right. Jump and burst in his face, which will push him slightly back to the left. And it can be slightly tricky, but try to get 3 bomb tosses on him as he's making his way towards the center. Now, King's Dive will try to land on you most of the time. Sometimes he can go straight up. But if he does try to track you, just try and move to his left after he lands. Get 3 more bomb tosses, jump cancel, 3 more bomb tosses. He should have very little health left. Basically, 1 more volley of bomb tosses should get him. So whether or not you take damage, it doesn't matter. Just try and make sure that you can nail 3 more bomb tosses. You can kill him before he starts doing his full screen dash attacks. But even if he begins the animation, so long as you throw the bombs in front of him, he should run into them. So here's your full King Knight quick kill again. Have your burst ready. Wait for him to approach you. Burst to the left, 1, 2, 3, jump, 1, 2, 3. Get ready, another burst. Burst in his face, 3 more bombs. Run to his left, 3 more bombs, 3 more bombs, and then 3 more bombs, and he's dead. And the audio for when you get gold is dun, 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 right there. That's when gold happens, so listen carefully. So if you want it to split on gold there, that works just as fine too. Now after you clear every of the night stages from the Order of No Quarter, you get another moment with Mona. So again, practice your menuing so that you can leave without having to let go of your bomb burst, and you can just burst after finishing your conversation with her. And that'll wrap it up for Pridemoor Keep. Next time we'll be covering the Lich Yard. So until then, thank you for watching. Take care.